All right, welcome back. Now, there are about 10,644 convicted women prisoners in Kenya. This is according to data from the 2017 Economic Survey. Women prisoners are the clear minority in Kenya's criminal justice system, which currently holds slightly over 71,000 male prisoners. Well, this is a segment of society that is often forgotten. However, during Women's History Month, we want to highlight the stories of women who have been incarcerated and the organizations that help them reintegrate into society. Joining me now in studio are Christine Odero, Programs Coordinator at the Faraja Foundation, and Beatrice Mureo, a former inmate who is now using her time to mentor young girls. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Beatrice, let me begin with you. You have an incredible story.
Oh, yes.
You were put in at the age of 16.
Yes.
On a murder charge.
Oh, yes, I was 16. And I don't know, I was just like any other girl.
Yeah.
A teenage who was living her life then, having the teenage crisis, the moratorium and everything that happens to any teenage person there out. And then something happens. I'm expelled from Karema Girls, and in the process of now trying to refine myself, trying to focus my energy somewhere else, that is how I found myself behind bars. Yes, it wasn't easy.
What was that experience like?
Wow, it is an experience that I just am like out of this world. Because for one, nobody prepares you for that. And in my case, I was a minor.
Yeah.
And here I am. I've been put in a prison. Here I'm mixing with all ages of women. I remember at a point I had to lie to those ladies there inside that the baby that I was carrying at that point, because I was pregnant.
You were pregnant at that time?
Yes.
Wow.
That was my second baby. I had to lie to that for survival. Because if I said I was a minor, I don't know how life would have been.
So you gave birth while you were incarcerated?
Yes.
What was that like?
Wow, no, that is something else. It was one of my hardest times, because I remember I went to the hospital twice, Kenyatta National Hospital. The first time I went there and I was told it was forced labor. Here I am, and then I'm taken back to the prisons. The baby can't play, everything is just still. And I complained to a certain madam, and may her soul rest in peace. Madam Joto. I can't really remember her name.
Angelina.
Madam
Angelina.
Hey, madam, I can't feel the kicks anymore. Then she's like, wow. She took me straight to the duty officer's office, and just like that, I was taken to Kenyatta National Hospital, and I went an emergency CS, and that is how my baby was rescued. Today, this year he's turning 15.
Incredible. And you've made such a transformation, which we'll get into in detail a bit later. But Christine, let me bring you in here, because you have dealt with many stories like that of Beatrice.
Yes, yes.
When we start to look at the current state of prisons now, what would you say they are in now?
Yeah, I can say we've come a long way, because you remember before the prison reforms, open door policies, people like stakeholders like Faraja Foundation never used to get even closer to the prison. Like, it was a very closed place. I remember when we started working at Langata Women's Prison, we were among the first organizations, and inmates used to be locked like for many hours. Then after the open door policies, now the doors were opened, and a lot of activities. And I can say up till now, a lot has changed. We currently have discharge board committee in all institutions, an initiative by the Kenya Prison Service, and the community is involved. So a lot has changed. Dynamics have changed, right. But there's also a lot to be done.
Right, and the late Mudi Awori was quite instrumental in bringing some of those reforms. How much changed from what he did?
Yes, yeah. The late Mudi, not the late Mudi Awori, yeah, was quite instrumental. You remember when the open door policy was initiated, even the prison now were open for stakeholders to now start like engaging in rehabilitation programs. And most prisons, especially Langata Women's, which is one of those prisons that opened its door, was able to even open up to the world. Like, for instance, if you go there, there were televisions that now were bought, and Faraja was part of it.
Right.
The beds, we started even improving the situations inside there. Like, I remember the prison institution was a bit squeezed then, but thanks to Kenya Prison Service that opened the doors, and together with stakeholders, we have come a long way. And right now, I can tell you, even though there are a bit of gaps, Langata Women's is one institution that looks like a secondary school. Yeah, although challenges are there, but I can tell you, Vicky, because I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been there. It has really, really improved.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And my apologies, Muria Wari is alive and well.
Yes.
So that was a misspeak on my behalf. Apologies for that. But let me come to you, Beatrice, because there are a lot of myths around being incarcerated that I know you want to kind of dispel. What exists out there that you want to let people know?
People should understand that a prison is, everybody is a candidate for a prison.
Yeah.
Just like you wake up one day and you just like walking on your day-to-day lives, and then something happens and you go to hospital.
Right.
That is what happens. You can be doing all, just going on with your life, and then something happens and you find yourself behind bars. People just come to think of prisoners in a very negative way, and especially those who face like crimes, like they're called the capital offenders. The capital offenders, that is the murder cases, the robbery with violence, and rarely do you get people with treason in Kenya. So these people, they are, even in the treatment they get, even in the prison, you're locked up in a different place. When you have to go to the hospital, you are accorded more security. That is how the prisoners are treated. But out there, people don't get to understand that some of these people that I interacted with, barely most of them, they were there for circumstantial evidences. Yeah. About a 10% will confess to you that I did this. I premeditated, took part in the planning, and I took part in the execution. Just a very small percentage. Others are just like for instance, the crimes of passion, right, whereby couples come and fight. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says that today I'm just going to beat my wife to death. Unless something had, unless you have a mental illness which you are experiencing, like so many of them, so many of cases are happening today. And maybe like, especially in the robbery with violence, yes, masterminds are never caught. Right. Very few, and especially those people who participated, or better still, had an information about that. They knew it was going to happen, and just like anybody else, they were like, it is not my place. So they just let the action happen, right, and then you're arrested. Masterminds, in most robbery cases, masterminds are never arrested.
You know, it's interesting, when you look at the demographics, at least in women's prisons, I came across a very interesting statistic. More than 70% of women imprisoned in Kenya are behind bars for resulting or violating the Liquor Act alone. Yeah. Yes. That's huge. Yes, and yeah, when you think about why they involve themselves in that, you know, what do you make of that stat?
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out, because we feel most women behind bars are there for what we call poverty crimes. You will find that the ordinary remandees, she has mentioned the capital remandees, who are a number, but a larger population are the people with poverty crimes. People have been caught with kanjo on the streets, women who are maybe in illicit businesses like brewing of changa for survival. And sadly enough, when they are brought to prison, when they're put in custody, they leave their children behind. They leave, their families are disintegrated, and it's very sad because some of them are even pregnant. Yeah, so I think it is something that needs to be looked into. Yeah. Yes, the prison gives safer custody, but you see most of them are either on pre-trial or are either going through short sentences. But even so, there is a lot to be done by in the criminal justice system and in fact with the judiciary to make sure that there are alternative incarceration measures, and especially for women, because you put a woman behind bars who takes care of their children. there are cases, Vicky, we have had of children who did not see their mother today, tomorrow, and 1 week, 2 weeks, the neighbors give up because they don't know what to do about the children, right. And yet the parents are in prison. It's a very sad situation. Right now, if you look at the situations in the prison, the prison is overpopulated. Right. And yes, stakeholders, the government is doing something with the women prison, but putting a woman behind the bar is not enough, and especially with a petty crime. Even if you're giving them food, even if you're giving them nice beddings, right. What happens to the family? What happens to the children? Mm. Children are suffering outside because most of their parents are in prison. This is just a section of prison. I wish today we were talking about the male. That is another story altogether. Maybe in future we'll talk about the male prison situations also.
No, absolutely. And I wish we had more time on that. But, you know, Beatrice, I want to come back to your personal story. How long were you actually in for?
My case took quite some time because I was booked into Langata Women's Prison in May. I think it was in May 2008, and I was released in the year 2011. So it took around 3.5 years. That is when because that was before the new constitution, and capital offenses were not billable. So I had to stay there all through my trial. I can tell you there are some people I met there and I still left them there. And these cases take a long time. I know of people that have been there in the remand for more than 10 years. Right. Just there. So it really takes quite some time.
Yeah, yeah.
And when it came to your reintegration into normal life, that also comes with its own challenges.
Yes. Because like I always say, being behind bars, or rather being in prison, you're all at the same status quo. You're sharing the same status. Nobody is above the other, so life there is generally easy. But when it comes to reintegration, that is where it is harder than rehabilitation itself. Personally, my reintegration was made a little bit easier because of the support I got from the family. Because I remember my family, as much as I was not in good terms when I was getting into prison, all through they worked with me. I remember when my son turned 13 months, my mom took him in, and went with him and left me in the prison. So when I went home, my sisters, my parents, the extended family, they accorded me great support. And that's why, because I was released in November, my aim, every time maybe my dad would come in Langata, my desire was like, Dad, when I get home, will you take me back to school? Because I was a dropout when I was going to school, when I was going to prison, and he would say yes. When I got home, and now the station I was looking at, things were really hard. Everything was just, but they were there. The love that I got was just so immense that I just forever remain grateful to my family because of that. So even when I was there out and now trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, before I even called Faraja Foundation for a scholarship back to school, my family was there. They gave me the greatest support I can ever imagine. Buying me clothes because I didn't have. My son was well taken care of, and everything. But of course, there are those people who would come and they look like, oh, you're back.
Right. Exactly.
And then the stigma now starts. That one I didn't experience much of it because my family was there for me. And maybe probably the other thing that I say saved me much of the stigma that comes with being an ex-offender is one, because going back in November, the hassles of looking for a school, and now in January, going back to school, I think that one now, I was moved from one closed environment to another one. So the transition itself gave me minimal stigma moments. Yes.
Beatrice, let me close with you because Faraja deals heavily in the reintegration process. What are some challenges and how much of a game changer is family? Beatrice talked about that.
Yeah, I think family is #1 support system because before the society accepts an ex-offender, the family should be there. In fact, for us, reintegration begins right from prison. While the person is in prison, it's important that the family keeps in touch, talks to their members, their family members who are in prison. Like Beatrice, the brother, I remember the brother used to visit her every day in prison. So family is a very huge support, because when you're for instance, people with murder cases, some are never accepted back because of their families. But if the family is mediated on their behalf, then it becomes very easy when the family is involved at first hand. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's all the time we have. To Christine from the Faraja Foundation, and of course Beatrice for coming to share your personal story. I know you're using your life now to mentor other young women to at least go down a more positive path.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
It's never easy.
No, I can imagine. But thank you so much for your time. All right, let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. Sports news is up next.